I'm canning whole tomatoes today in two separate ways. The one way is to can them in just water. The other way is to can them in their own juices. There's pluses and minuses to both, and I'll go over them as we go along, but both of them are really a quick and easy way to preserve the tomato. I begin by blanching my tomatoes to remove their skins. It's an easy way to do it. If you have any questions about it, I'll put a link in the description below of my other video that shows how to blanch. I also removed all of their cores. If I was doing Roma tomatoes, which I really prefer to use for this, then I wouldn't have to worry about that step because the core is so small in those ones. The first jars I'm putting together are my tomatoes canned in water. And this one of the benefits to it is it's a much prettier one. So because of that, and because you can see it, I take my tomatoes that are a little more well-formed and use those. And because these ones are not red, I kind of take into account the different colors that are showing, and it'll provide this kaleidoscope of colors that's just fun to see. I actually don't even think I have a single red tomato out of my garden right now. So I just kind of place my tomatoes as I go. And like I said, I want them to look good on the outside because I'll actually be able to see these ones. I did have one red tomato, so that's fun. Slide that in there. I want to make sure that I leave a ½ inch of headspace, and that headspace is from the top of the food to the top of the jar. So those ones are all prepared. I'll set those off to the side, and now I'll do my ones that will be canned in their own juice. And for these ones, I tend to choose the ones that ended up falling apart a little bit more. Now, one of the things you'll find about this, beyond not having to be worried about how they look, is that you can actually fit far more tomatoes into a jar when you're just squishing them because you don't have all of that extra space in between. When I have very ripe tomatoes, this is one that I choose to do. It can still kind of be fun to have the different colors and layers in there. And again, my headspace will be ½ inch for these ones as well. I neglected to mention that I still need a little bit of room to add my lemon juice to those. So especially for the ones that I squish in, I actually leave more like 1 inch of headspace until after I do the lemon juice, and then I can adjust it. So each of my jars is going to need 1 teaspoon of salt, and that'll be for both recipes. Now the salt is optional, but it actually does a really good job of preserving both the color and the flavor. Then I'll add my 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, which is not optional because it makes it acidic enough so that I can boiling water bath it. So 2 tablespoons goes in each jar, again for both recipes. And then for my tomatoes canned in water, I need to add water up to that 1/2 inch of headspace. The other 2 that were in their own juice are perfectly up to 1/2 inch of headspace at this point. One of the benefits of canning them in their own juice is that you're not diluting any of that tomato flavor with the water that you put in. So at this point, I need to run through with my wooden chopstick and try to get any air bubbles out. Sometimes air bubbles can get trapped under those tomatoes, and so that's what this is for. And then I can double check my headspace and see if it's good, which those still are, so that's good. Okay, so this one needs just a little bit more liquid in here. Now I'll use a clean damp cloth to wipe off the edge of my jars so that if anything got on the edge, that it won't interfere with the seal. I'll then place my lids and rings on until they're fingertip tight. I'm using Superb canning lids today, which they're my new favorite. It's an American-made company, and so I really like to support that, but it's also really good quality. They have this super squishy blue seal to them, as well as having this corrosion-resistant coating on there, 5 coatings actually, but it's good for me because I store mine in my root cellar, and so it's a little more humid in there. I have a link and a coupon code for 20% off in my description below. Now I'll process both of these in my boiling water bath. The tomatoes in water will process for 45 minutes if you're at sea level. I'm at 1,200 feet, so I'll process them for 50 minutes. The tomatoes that are in their own juices, though, they have to go for quite a bit longer. If you're at sea level, they will go for 1 hour and 25 minutes in the boiling water bath. But since I'm at 1,200 feet, I'll do 1 hour and 30. So I have 2 separate canners for these. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll remove the lid, turn off the heat, and let it cool for 5 minutes. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll remove the lid, turn off the heat, and let it cool for 5 minutes. So when I take my jars out, I place them 1 to 2 inches apart so that they can cool down quickly. I'll give them 24 hours on the counter so that they can get a good seal. I can tell they have a good seal if the center of the lid has depressed down. Then I remove the rings, wash it with hot soapy water, and place it in a cool, dry, dark location like my pantry, and use it in the next 1 to 3 years. If any of them didn't seal, I would place them in the refrigerator and use them right away. If you look at these 4, you can see that these 2 are the ones that were done in water, and these ones were the ones that were done in their own juice. And the ones that were done in water have a much higher percentage of space that's just the liquid, just the water. And of course, you wouldn't really want to use that. You could, but it would be much more diluted, as opposed to the ones that are done in their own juice. They have just a little bit at the bottom, but you know that that's all juice. Everything that's in there was a part of the tomato before, with the exception of the lemon juice and the salt. So these ones, you're getting a much more concentrated version of your tomato. These ones a little bit more dilute, but these are a little bit easier to do because you don't have to squish everything down. And if you're dealing with tomatoes that aren't as ripe, it's going to work better, as well as looking a little bit prettier. Like when you look at them, especially as they cool down and they start to not be right at the top, then you can see the shape of the tomatoes better. I'll give you another photo here to look at, and these are some Roma tomatoes that I did, and you can really see the difference on these ones. Both of these methods are great ways to take care of your tomatoes, easy to do, and don't take too much time, with the exception, I suppose, of the time to process the ones that have been done in their own juice. That's a little bit longer, but it's so much easier than turning them into a salsa or anything like that, which I like to do those as well.